We are at the Aero India. The Tribune's coverage from Aero India continues. With me is a very seasoned person who is from the Lockheed Martin. He's the regional chief executive, India and Asia for Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin has sold planes like C-130J to India, the MH-60 helicopters. They are in the race for the next generation of fighter jets, and they also make the famous F-35 fifth generation stealth fighter jet. Mr. Blair, first of all, I'll take you to what is called the medium MRFA tender. That is for the Indian Air Force. They're looking at 114 planes. One of your jets, the F-21, is in the race for that. How do you intend to make in India with that jet?
Well, you know, we've already started to make in India with what we're offering. We're actually building fighter wings now in Hyderabad, the F-16 wing, and that's of the same family of what we're offering on the F-21. And so we'll be delivering production wings from that facility in Hyderabad, our joint venture with Tata Lockheed Martin Aerostructures Limited, the same place where we've been building empennages now for the last 15 years.
So there's an MTA tender also, medium transport aircraft tender. Lockheed Martin is one of the participants in that. What plane are you offering to India, and what would be your make in India in that also?
Well, you know, on the MTA, we're already building the empennage, as I mentioned, down in Hyderabad. We've delivered 230 plus empennages, and it's our sole source globally that delivers to our headquarters operations where we produce those aircraft in Marietta, Georgia. And so that's been remarkably effective. Now we're looking at standing up the MRO here to meet the Indian requirement, and you know, has the capacity to meet a regional requirement for maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Here, there's tremendous capability in India. You would have seen that we announced yesterday that that would be here in Bangalore itself. And then, you know, when we look at a requirement of 40, 60 aircraft to 80, even 80 aircraft with a medium transport aircraft, we know we have to lean into this and produce those aircraft in India to meet an Indian requirement. But when we do that, that still ties into our production in the U.S., our production capacity. So we see this as actually a way to sustain and grow our C-130J production that is very much there in Marietta, Georgia, while standing up the capability to meet a local Indian requirement here at scale.
Mr. Blair, I have visited your plant in Hyderabad where you work with the Tatas, and you have actually indigenized a lot of operations out here, actually making in India, actually on ground. There is also a tender called the Javelin anti-tank missile which the Lockheed Martin makes, and you had a tie-up with BDL, if I'm not wrong, Bharat Dynamics Limited. What happened to that? Are you still in the race, and is the Javelin still a product you want to sell in India?
Well, you know, Javelins, we've been working with the Indian Army and the MOD to offer Javelin now for well over a decade, actually, and I worked that program earlier when I was in a different role here in India back in the 2010-2012 timeframe. What's important to understand is we've evolved the capability of Javelin. It's proven itself clearly in Ukraine and the effectivity, and we've also demonstrated the capability of Javelin here in India most recently at high altitude. And so I think from a capability, it's very well proven. Now, from a Make in India perspective, we had an MOU that we're now renewing with BDL, Bharat Dynamics Limited, and we're also looking at, you know, more of I'll say a holistic supply chain approach as to how can we work with multiple suppliers in India to meet that Make in India requirement. And we're seeing, you know, very large number requirement coming up that could sustain that type of production, again, while sustaining our production through our operations in the U.S. So it's a win-win in terms of how do we, you know, position to meet the Indian requirement at scale with existing partners. And so I think it's a tremendous opportunity that looks, that's getting a greater sense of urgency as well.
Mr. Blair, any other options or any other possibilities of more helicopters being sold to the Navy or more C-130Js coming to the Indian fleets?
Well, you know, the feedback that we're getting from the Indian Navy on the operations of the MH-60 Romeo are tremendously positive. It's proven itself on multiples of Indian ships, and in its capability and its endurance and its reliability and maintainability. So I think building on that experience and understanding an evolving requirement potentially for additional aircraft, you know, Lockheed Martin, Sikorsky stand ready to support whatever the requirements that would come up from the Indian Navy. But you know, the ability to make that case really rests on the how effective that is operating in the current fleet. And so it's a great testament that so far the operations are going very well. So we think our future is very bright. But of course, we'll look to the Indian Navy to support whatever their requirements may be.
Mr. Blair, one important and the last question. The F-35 fighter jet. It's one of the most talked about planes in the world. You have sold it to your allies. I mean, the US has sold it to its allies and also to Australia and Japan. Is India a market open to the F-35? And if that happens, is Lockheed Martin willing to partner the India's Advanced Medium Combat Aircraft program?
Well, it's a question on a lot of people have been asking that. We really look to a government-to-government discussion that would, address that question that you have. So, I mean, obviously, we're supporting a tremendous international program with the F-35 around the world, and we do that in support of and in concert with the U.S. government. So I would, defer that to a government-to-government discussion.
That was Mr. William Blair speaking to us. He is with the Lockheed Martin, the world's biggest military equipment making company. Thank you for speaking to us, Mr. Blair.
Thank you very much.